Difficulties in your personal or professional life? Do you battle procrastination or diversions all the time? Are you prepared to advance your degree of success? Once upon a time, in a bustling city, there lived a young man named Ethan. Ethan was an ambitious and driven individual, but he had a hidden struggle. He had been struggling with his sexual desires. He would frequent indiscriminate encounters, seeking temporary pleasure, but feeling a void within himself. As time went on, he noticed that his energy levels were constantly depleted, affecting his focus, motivation, and overall sense of well-being. At times, he would even feel ashamed of himself. He would look at other women in a sexual way, and not as people. He felt a deep yearning for something more meaningful and fulfilling in his life. One day, while exploring the city, Ethan came across a tranquil Zen garden. Intrigued by the serene atmosphere, he decided to enter and explore the beauty within. As he wandered through the garden, he stumbled upon an elderly man sitting in deep meditation. This was Master Hiroshi, a renowned Zen master known for his wisdom and guidance. Curiosity piqued, Ethan approached Master Hiroshi and respectfully introduced himself. He shared his struggle with wasting his sexual energy and the impact it had on his life. Master Hiroshi listened attentively and then gazed at Ethan with a compassionate smile. "Dear Ethan," Master Hiroshi began, "your struggle is not uncommon. Many have sought temporary pleasure without realizing the profound potential within them. The sexual fluid, or vital essence, has a significant amount of prana in it. The force therein can be harnessed to improve physical health, mental energy, creativity, and spiritual development if it is not extinguished. Prana provides us with energy and nourishment and is present in the water we drink, the food we eat, the air we breathe. In our body, it is present in its most concentrated form in men's semen and women's menstrual blood. In Ayurveda, 1 drop of semen is said to be made from 40 drops of blood. Similarly, Tibetan medicine says that it takes 1 cup of the vital essence of blood to produce 1 drop of the vital essence of semen. Therefore, Ethan, my son, this realization will change your life. It is time for you to embark on a journey of self-discovery and transformation." Ethan's eyes lit up with newfound hope as he eagerly sought Master Hiroshi's guidance. Ethan asked the master, "Master, how does one transmute his or her sexual energy?" The Zen master responded, "The most effective method of transmuting your sexual energy entails abstaining from any sort of sexual behavior or content, including sex, masturbation, and pornography, and using this energy for other purposes. It's important to know that transmuting sexual energy has nothing to do with suppressing or battling it. Doing so is foolish and not advised. Repressing this energy can only make you frustrated. The secret is to direct your sexual energy into your objectives and creative endeavors. Energy is indestructible. When semen is retained in men, it is reabsorbed into the body to feed the brain, neurological system, and higher energy centers. It is strongly advised that you practice daily meditation and physical activity, such as yoga, in addition to the process of transmuting your sexual energy. By doing this, You can prevent the sexual energy from remaining concentrated on the sex chakra or genitalia, which could make your impulses more intense. The following are some other techniques for directing and flowing the sexual energy upwards. Number 1, pranayama, deep breathing exercises. Number 2, yoga poses.
Okay, so I'm not going to play all of that tonight because we're not necessarily doing from the male perspective. We're not doing from the male perspective whatsoever, and neither are we doing from the Buddhist or whatever perspective that is. But I really thought that was interesting, and you can find it on YouTube from the point of view of creativity and sexuality, which is tonight's topic. And I am so excited about this conversation. Everybody knows that aside from food, one thing that Claudette loves to talk about is sex. And my regular co-host for this program, who unfortunately is not able to join us tonight, she would say it's because I'm not getting any, why I love to talk about it. Maybe. I'm a widow and have remained faithful, if that's the word, to my late husband for the past going on 4 years. Maybe these ladies, these 4 ladies, will get me to change that tonight. We shall see. I have 4 guests with me tonight, and one of them actually, her name is Zen. So, but I think her connection went just for a moment there. So as soon as she comes back, she will join us. But in the meantime, let me bring on the other 3 ladies, my tutors here tonight. And for anybody else who's interested watching it tonight or later on, interested to know, how can you channel your sexuality into your creativity, or is it the other way around? Lorna is my first guest, who will help me with that. And then this lady's name I cannot pronounce, but I'm going to give it my best shot. It is Artemisia. Did I do okay? No, I'm sure I didn't.
You did pretty well. Yeah. Artemisia de Vine. Everybody has a struggle with that to start
Artemisia de Vine. I won't anymore. And my third guest tonight is Lyque you.
You did good. That was good. Yeah.
And as I said, there's a 4th guest tonight. Her name is Zen. She was here while we were watching that, and then for some reason I think she dropped off, but I'm sure she'll join us. Ladies, thank you for being here. Thank you, I think, for being here for this very important conversation. I must say straight up that we are not a huge platform. We've been growing. We're almost 10K followers now. And that's just so amazing to me, because we were 3K for a while, and then just overnight I posted a couple things and people started to respond to it, and we're almost at 10K now, and so before we go any further though, for those who are new to the platform, those who will be watching later on, just to introduce myself and what this Daughters of Sheba Foundation is about. The Daughters of Sheba Foundation started as a private secret Facebook group, not the foundation, but the Daughters of Sheba started as a private secret Facebook group almost 15 years ago. And it was a group of women who came together wanting to support each other on everything. We talked sex, we talked religion, we talked politics, we talked children, we talked family, we talked everything. And we did more than talk. We literally, anybody needing help among us, we supported each other. And then with time, with every group, things fizzle, people go their own way and so forth. And here is Zen back with us. Thanks for joining us, Zen. I don't have to ask you how to pronounce your name because I know how to pronounce that.
Well, thank you. I had technical difficulties. I had to switch out mice because for some reason my mouse just gave out on me and it wouldn't let me do anything.
It's all good. It's all good.
Sorry.
I was just telling everybody who the Daughters of Sheba Foundation is. And here is one of the founding persons, the foundation persons, who Clara Brown. She has been my friend over the internet for the past 15 years. We met on Facebook through this group, and then we met in person a few years later, and we have been fast friends ever since. Hello, Clara. To the point that when I decided to make the Daughters of Sheba to make it into a foundation, which was just about 4 years going. This is our third year, going into our fourth. After my husband was murdered, I needed to channel my energy, and I reached out to some girlfriends and say, can we revive Daughters of Sheba group and make it into a foundation and share what we know before it's time for us to leave the earth. Let us share what we know and share our resources as best as we can. So that's how the Daughters of Sheba Foundation came about. My name is Claudette Campbell, and I am the president and chairperson of the Daughters of Sheba Foundation. I am based in Edmonton, Alberta. I've been a Canadian citizen for the past 21 years, or is it 22, whatever. Clara, who you just met, she's also Jamaican by birth, and she resides in Kingston, Jamaica. And then there is Gloria, who at this point in time, she's British, but she lives in Jamaica, and but she's visiting London at this time. So I'm not sure if she'll be with us tonight. But enough about us. That's us. That's who we are. That's what we do. If you hear movements in the background, those are my granddaughters getting their snacks and all of that. So ignore them. So before we jump into the meat and potato of tonight's conversation, which is sex, I just love saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not having it, so I can talk about it. I want to give each of you 2 minutes, to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. I've been touting you ladies all for the last 2 weeks. Hey, I'm going to have 4 sexologists with me talking with us tonight. But I want you to tell us who you are, whatever. You don't have to be salacious, and just who are you and why you said yes to this conversation, why you think it is important for us as women to be having this conversation. So I'm going to start with the person right next to me in terms of how we are on screen. So Lorna, let's start with you. Tell us a little about Lorna.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and what a beautiful introduction to the Daughters of Sheba Foundation. Thank you for sharing that. So why I'm here, I think like a lot of people, it comes from my own journey, our own journeys. And so based on my own journey of sexual freedom and spiritual wholeness, growing up in a religious home, thinking those two are the separate, and the idea of save yourself for marriage, somehow that implanted in me this idea that my body and my sexuality are not mine. And this journey of coming home to myself has been one that has taken decades. And I'm now almost 62. And it was not until I was 47 years old that I had my midlife sexual awakening. And in there really came into an awareness of my body, really connecting to my body through some professional trainings where Artemisia and I met, and going through that process. And for me, it's really about supporting people in looking at the stories we've been told, the stories we've lived. And actually, I like to look at things from a mirror perspective, that what we've experienced so far is actually looking at things from a mirror, which is the opposite, where women have been, or the feminine has been repressed, and the masculine has been uprisen. And it's actually, what if it was like the other way around, where we have the feminine or spirit in leadership and in that flow, and the masculine in the form or the support of things. So for me, it's really about supporting people of coming back into their sexual freedom and into their spiritual wholeness, and bringing those two together in both not only the spiritual and the human experience, but also in the feminine and masculine, bringing it all back in together, and sexual and sex being that 0 point, if you will.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I'm going to be writing, so don't mind me if I look away, because like you said something a while ago, which I want to come back to, but let's do the introductions first. So let me see. I said I would not mispronounce your name again. But here I go, Artemisia de Vine.
Oh, well done. Good job.
Thank you. Who are you?
Who am I? That's a good question. Well, I am a certified sexologist. I have a BA in anthropology. I'm a former sex worker and professional dominatrix. And I am a human being who has been curious about what on earth it means to be a human being since I popped out. And I've found that my interest in sex initially came from fear and it being something that experiencing it as something that benefited others. I've experienced sexual desire in particular as something that other people would desire me for their own benefit, but I did not experience sexual desire as something that was mine for my own benefit. And I was afraid. And I experienced that people who were out of relationship with their desire and acted in ways that was not in integrity and did not create a positive experience for me. And so when I'm afraid of something, I generally go and poke it with a stick and see what happens. I move towards what I'm afraid of and want to explore it and play with it. So that ended up leading to a lifetime of being a sex geek and trying to understand why.
Did you say a sex geek?
Sex geek.
Sex geek.
And I want to know why. Why are we turned on by the things that we're turned on by? Why? How does desire work? What is this force inside of us? And over a lifetime of experimenting in all sorts of different ways, learning from some of the world's most profound leaders in sexuality, I ended up coming up with my own framework for understanding and harnessing this really powerful force inside of ourselves. And that's what I teach now. I teach people how to make sense of their confusing turn-ons. I teach really good people how to be badasses in bed and how to harness this stuff.
When's the next class and where?
Right.
So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Beautiful. Very
Badasses
interesting.
in bed. Hey, where are you located again? Just country.
Australia.
Australia, right.
Wow. Okay.
You Aussies. Zen. Please bring some calmness to my nerves. After hearing Lorna talking about midlife, I am at my, I'll be 60 next year. I'm 59 on Thursday. And so maybe, is that past midlife or my midlife sexual awakening? Or do I have some fear? We will go into that further. But Zen, can you tell us who you are and why you are here, why you said yes to this conversation?
Well, I am Zen Ase, and I say I am a coach, a conduit, and a catalyst who launches humanity into greatness by accelerating mindset changes and replacing limitations with possibilities. So I have some similarities with Lorna Gale. I was raised very conservatively, very religious family, and again, didn't feel like my body was my own, and I had a midlife sexual awakening. But prior to that, I was a sexual assault as a child victim and then as an adult victim, and also a survivor of domestic violence. And so I came into kind of activism with those groups, and reclaiming your sexuality is a big part of healing from sexual abuse as a child and as an adult, and also from domestic violence. So I was already on that journey when I got divorced, and I then decided I was going to do online dating. And that led me into a whole new realm of basically
Abuse.
throwing away everything I had been taught about what makes a good girl. I learned that I was multi-orgasmic at 43 and never had any inkling that that was even a possibility. I, again, retrained myself.
Write that down.
Give myself permission to have my own body and my pleasure, and to feel that what I wanted was equally, if not more important than my partner, So I kind of, like I said, had to retrain myself, because I think a lot of women are taught to repress ourselves in every way, from our voice to our thoughts to our sexuality to the way we dress, everything about us, our hair, our makeup. We are taught to please men. And so over the last 10 years, I've written several books about really giving yourself permission to go on your own journey of self-discovery, and that your purpose here is to self-actualize, and whatever form that takes for you to become your best self is what you were put here to do. And that could be your best self sexually, your best self creatively, your best self mentally, professionally, but you should be able to give yourself permission to do all of that, no matter how unconventional your journey may be, because mine included leaving the church, going on a whole spiritual journey, going on over 157 dates, having short-term lovers and long-term lovers and all kind of different things. So I wrote about that journey, and in the process of writing about it, which I actually didn't intend on doing when I started it, but that's kind of how I dealt with the culmination of it. I've found, in a sense, a tribe of women who are all different ages, from 18 all the way up to 80, and men who are saying, okay, I want to be my best self. I want to unlearn these limitations that have been put on me. I want to think for myself and be a free thinker. I want to define for myself what success is in life, and not put maybe a relationship as the pinnacle, or being good in society's eyes as the pinnacle, but what is really going to make me happy. And so that's really what I do, is I try to help people, again, replace limitations with possibilities, and realize we only have one life. And so with this one life, how can we kind of pull, as I think the Rose said, how can we suck the marrow out of this life and get to the deepness and fullness of it, and enjoy every moment of it without feeling the shame and the guilt and all of the negativity that has been put into many of us, especially in the American culture. I think we have a multicultural and an international audience.
Yeah, we do.
As a panel, but I know in America, we've got a Puritan work ethic, and we've got a Puritan kind of sexual background, where sex is dirty, the body is dirty, and pleasure is sinful. And so trying to get people away from that, to even explore, why do we even think like this? And is that serving you to think like this? Because at the end of the day, I want people to decide for themselves what is true for them. I'm not trying to replace my dogma with the other dogmas, but come to your own dogma. Come to your own set of beliefs and your own set of criteria for evaluating what is wholeness for you, what is healing for you, what is pleasure for you. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get people to do. And that is, to me, one of the most freeing things that you can ever do, is when you decide that you are the judge and jury for your life.
Amen. Thank you for that, Zen. Like you. Hey.
Wow.
It's going to be a long night.
I mean, you ladies are awesome. I'm like just sitting here going, wow, wow, wow. This is really awesome. I'm Lyque O'Connor. I am 57 years old. I retired from local government way too early, just because I could retire. Didn't think that, I was going to retire and the world was going to turn upside downwards and things were going to happen, trauma was going to come upon us. Didn't know any of that. All I knew was, like, about 4 years ago, I wanted to sell adult novelty toys. I wanted to buy an adult novel. I wanted to buy more toys. So I was told you could save 40%. I said, oh, sign me up. Back then, I just wanted to buy toys. I didn't think about it. I didn't even get into the business or look into it or anything. I was just
The toys were for
interested in buying a
yourself.
toy. The toys were for me. It was 40% off. okay, I was happy. And then I started liking the products. It's like, ooh, I bought the products like, ooh, I like this. Oh, and now OMG cap lock, I have awakened the sleeping giant. But anyway, since then, COVID hit. I've lost a lot of people. I've lost all of my immediate family. I didn't even think of that until, you don't think of that until it actually happens and you're actually in that situation. I really didn't even think about, like 2 years ago, I lost my brother. And then 2 months after that, I lost my sister. So my mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, all of my immediate family are deceased. So when I look at a picture now, it's only me in the picture. So, but I guess that's like think how things happen in life, because I'm young and everyone else was older. We didn't think of that. I didn't think of that then. Um, and then a couple of years ago, I got breast cancer. So having breast cancer or having any type of or any type of illness or anything in your life is a tragedy, and you don't know how to handle it until you're in that situation. And then the one main thing that I always say is strong women can get through anything. And I'm not just saying that, I'm saying that because that's what it takes. When things happen, when tragedy happened to you, you just can't. I mean, I fell apart. Of course, I was blaming everybody and, I was angry. But once I got myself together and I had a plan in place, I knew what I had to do to get through that. And that's why I said family is very important, because I didn't have any family with me to get through that, but I still had to get through it. And also BK, my bedroom candy, helping me with that it helped me to get through the cancer. I didn't even think of that. So my why story of why I stayed into selling adult novelty has changed over the years, from me wanting to buy just wanting to buy adult toys, to, ooh, I'm no longer getting wet. I'm over 50 something years old. So things down there are changing. It's not getting wet. It's not the wet, juicy place where it used to be. So I needed help. And I started learning and getting information and being educated on CBD. And CBD that attacks the nerve system. So when you place CBD inside your vagina, OMG cap lock. So that changed. And then it went from when I had the cancer, I'm just trying to use products because I'm in so much pain. And come to find out, my BK has products for cancer patients. You can use it as cancer, for wellness. And so I use my products 3 times a day, so my story keeps changing. And now OMG cap lock, we have a new toy. So I am back to, oh my God, another toy. So my story keeps.
You ever hear the saying, once a man, twice a child? That's what came to mind when she's getting so excited about her toys. Oh, we have to talk toys. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for introducing yourselves. This is so interesting. I want to go back to the foundation, though, and I'm going to start with Ms. Devine on this. You mentioned fear as a motivator for you, but fear, I refer to it because fear seems to be something, particularly for women, particularly for people who are of a different sexual orientation than what the majority maybe. Fear, what in your mind was the role, or is the role, that fear continues to play in people's sexual expression?
Oh, that's such a big question, isn't
I
it?
know.
Such a
Break it
juicy
down.
one. My mind is just going, oh, I could go in so many different directions with that one. For initially, I actually am a little bit different to other sex educators in that I don't actually I recognize that the ideal sex does not actually come from 100% safety. It comes from the right sweet spot between risk and safety, right? So when you have too much fear, you're going to shut down. Your muscles are tense, your you're offline, you cannot actually feel anything pleasurable, you just feel sensation and you could go into panic. It's too far. If you're too safe, you can feel pleasure, but you cannot feel excitement. So, just like the rest of life, the most powerful things happen when you're just outside of your comfort zone, but you're still inside your zone of resilience, in that sweet spot in there. And so if you've only ever experienced fear, like initially I'd only experienced sex as something that was taken from me for somebody else's benefit, and I had never yet experienced that sweet spot, you're going to need to spend a lot of time developing your nervous system to become safe and finding so that you can bring that right balance in. But equally speaking, if it's not the end of the story to just become 100% safe. Then from there, you can say, oh, now I'm safe. What does desire feel like when it's for my benefit? What even is that? Right? How can I feel that emotionally in my nervous system? Oh, I can feel, and I'll tell you a little secret. Desire is actually, it's uncomfortable. Desire is, like, just think about it in a non-sexual way. Desire is what the act of wanting something, or the feeling of wanting something. It's I want. And if you want something, you do not yet have it. Right? As soon as you have it, you're no longer desiring it. You might be enjoying it, but you're not desiring it. So if you're in a state of desire, you are both in this excited place where you can activate this aliveness in you. Just imagine it's your favorite outfit. Like, we don't even have to make it a sexual thing. Let's just imagine that you're looking at a whole row of outfits and you see one that's like, wow, that's the ideal outfit. If people saw me wearing that, that would be exactly how I want to represent myself to the world. I feel desire to own this outfit, right? And then you're still in the act of wanting it. You don't yet have it. You now have a complicated set of feelings going on, of excitement of possibly having it, and fear someone else might grab it without you before you get it. And you have this uncomfortable feeling. It's actually hard not to move towards it and grab it. Like, standing still is difficult. It's uncomfortable and magnetic and enlivening at the same time. So it's not inside your comfort zone. It's a little step outside of your comfort zone. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
A little bit of going out.
Yeah. So Lorna, is that what you were referring to when you talk about the sexual awakening? You had it at midlife, but it can happen at any time, I imagine. Is that what you're talking about? What Ms. Devine is talking about? Stepping outside of your comfort zone, or is it something different?
Great question. And I loved listening to you, Artemisia, as you share that lust for life, right? That's just sort of calling in. I would say that what I refer to as my midlife sexual awakening was rather than this an expression, which I see as that desire, is that something is alive within and just wants to be expressed and to grab onto. And for me, it was more about that sense of that which I had been taught, right? Authority, permission, pleasure, partners, all out there. More, it just came back to this sense of it's time to come back home. And part of my midlife sexual awakening was actually sitting in front of a mirror, propped up, doing my my masturbation practice.
Excuse me?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Propped up there. And it was supposed to be this thing of, in this orgasmic state. And I'm thinking, all I could think of was, this is disgusting. This is gross. And the self-loathing and the shame that arose. And it even took me to this level of existential shame, the shame that I even existed. Once I could get down to that level, then I was able to awaken. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is so good. This is so pure. This is not wrong and dirty and shameful. And that was where I'd gone from being grossed out at sexuality and so disconnected to, it just became this natural thing to be able to share, to teach, to talk about, and to live and experience it in a very natural, healthy, whole way.
So, Zen, you spoke about reclaiming your sexuality, and we as people of color, particularly as Black women, masturbation is, at least I know in Jamaica, masturbation is a no-no. You even when a boy has natural, his body naturally responds, and he awakens in the morning with what they call it again?
A wet dream.
A wet dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know of kids who were beaten for having a wet dream. So this is all part and parcel of teaching us shame when it comes around to sexuality. You spoke about you're teaching people now how to reclaim their sexuality. Is it that they're reclaiming it from religion? Is it that they're reclaiming it from their parents? Who are you teaching them to reclaim their sexuality from?
From everywhere. My story is similar to yours in that I was raised Catholic, and I became non-denominational later. But I remember my grandmother telling me that you don't touch yourself, that's dirty, you don't. And also the idea of you're not supposed to have sex, but you're also not supposed to touch yourself. So you're just supposed to go without. And then you're supposed to get married, and you have no experience. So you don't know what you like. You don't know what pleasures you. And you're even I remember being engaged. I was engaged to someone that I didn't end up getting married to. And I remember telling him one of my fantasies was to go buy lingerie and to basically make myself so beautiful and sexy for him. And that he would just have this overwhelming desire for me. And he told me, why would you want to inspire lust in me? Lust is wrong. So it was even the whole idea of, even once you get married, you're not supposed to lust. You're supposed to have this very sedate, controlled access to sex, but it's not supposed to be too pleasurable, because you're not supposed to be thinking about it all the time, craving it all the time, lusting after it, because that's sin. And so that was when in college, I began to first question, like, if I can't even have my husband lust after me, desire me, and I'm supposed to have sex within the confines of marriage, then what is sex going to be like? And then I got married, and I didn't save myself all the way up to the wedding day, but I saved myself till I got engaged, right? Which to me was a big deal in our society. And
How old were you?
I was 24 going into 25, so then I had a partner who didn't care about my pleasure. But as a woman, I didn't know how to advocate for myself, because I was taught that basically you're the woman, you're supposed to make sure your husband's needs are taken care of. You're supposed to make sure that he's satisfied. But there was nothing ever said about me being satisfied. Basically, I was told, get a job, get married, have kids, you'll be happy. And that was not the truth. So then I ended up getting divorced because of abuse in that marriage. And 2 years later, I ended up getting married again to someone else. And we had a wonderful sex life at the very beginning. First 2 years were just absolute bliss. And I was so happy. And then he started to have erectile dysfunction issues. And he told me, I'm not going to go to the doctor and talk about this. As far as I'm concerned, our sex life is over. I will go and tell him. Now, he had hid from me that he had high blood pressure. So he said, I'm going to let you know now, when we met, I have high blood pressure. I had it then. I will go get my medication changed. I will ask about the blood pressure medication. So he tried to change that 3 times, didn't affect anything. So he couldn't get or keep erections. So I started trying to do a lot of research and herbs and, pumps and patches, creams, everything, and toys. We tried toys. But after a while, I wanted the real thing. I couldn't, and after a while, he was like, I'm not even going to go on dates with you. I really want to limit our conversations because anything I do romantically is just going to make you desire me, and I can't do anything for you. So let's just act like an old married couple, and we talk about the kids and the house and the bills and be friends. And I was like, I'm 30 something, I didn't sign up for this. And so I stayed as long as I could until I really started to hate him. And I stayed really for my kids because he was a great, great father, and their biological father had abandoned them. And then when I got divorced, I remember walking out the courthouse, and this is where I began my memoir. I remember walking out the courthouse and I said, my life from now on is going to be different. Religion told me that I came second. I'm going to come first. Marriage told me I came second. I'm going to come first. And I just began to just take away everything. And the very first lover that I had taught me that I was multi-orgasmic. And he was the one that basically said, there was a doctrine that I was taught as a Catholic. I call it the rose doctrine in the first chapter of my book. It's that women are roses. And if you let people pick at your petals, then when you get to be married, you have nothing but a blank stem to give, your husband. If you've let all your petals be gone, you have no purity, you have no real beauty, you have no value, because your value is in your purity, your chastity, your untouched rose. So here I am, divorced twice, in my 30s, right? I was 43 when I got divorced. So I'm 43, divorced twice, 2 kids, and I feel like I have nothing to offer a man. And I literally told him that, and he looked at me like I was the craziest person on the planet. He said, you are brilliant, you are accomplished, you are strong, you've overcome domestic violence, sexual assault, and you think you have nothing to offer me? He was like, you bought me a gift when we were just dating for Father's Day. You cooked me dinner just because you like to do things for me. He's like, you're generous, you are a good listener. He just started listing all these things, and he's like, girl, you ain't a damn rose. You're the whole damn garden. And you can replenish yourself. You know what I mean? You're a human being, and what's between your legs is not your only value. And that was one of the first people that I met that ever said, you are more than your chastity. You are more than your purity. Because everybody in my life had boiled my essence down to keeping myself pure. So when I got that in my head, which was the very first lesson of my book, you're not a rose, be the whole damn bush, be the whole damn garden. That was so freeing to me, that I was all of this, all of the skills that I had, all of the talents I had, my heart, my soul, my character, my intentions, my motivation. It wasn't just me being pure or unpure. And so much red pill rhetoric is out there now about, if you're over 25 and you've had a certain body count, you've got nothing to offer a man. So there's this graph that you can see where men and women are spreading like this. And the men are going way back to traditional conservative values, and the women are becoming more and more and more liberal. And it's making it harder and harder for people to meet in the middle, because the women are wanting to be seen as equal partners, and they're wanting to be seen as individuals, and the men are wanting to go back to this, be a virgin.
And that's I'm glad that you brought it up, because that's where I want to go with Like You. But before we do that, let me just acknowledge, in addition to Clara Brown, Cleo K. Clark is here, Claudette, my namesake, is here, Gabrielle, who is from Nigeria, is here, and Colleen Query Delamoto. These are all members of the Daughters of Sheba Foundation. They have commented. There are other people here, but they have commented. I just want to say hi and acknowledge their presence. Like you talked about, only talk about, but you sell the stuff toys, and Zen just said that she tried toys and it didn't work for her.
Right.
I tried toys. I think I tried 2 toys. I still have one, and it's like 10 years old. I think I should throw it out. I need to come to your website like you. Um, After tonight's conversation, toys doesn't work for everybody because either it's taboo, there's shame around it, all the things we've been talking about, there's shame around it,
Yeah.
it's artificial, it's not the real thing. What do you say to women, and I want all of you to jump in on this. Well, what do you say to women, because we're talking
Yeah.
to women? What do you say, but starting with you, like you, what do you
Right.
say to women
So,
who are having issues and want some help with toys?
right. Okay. So the first thing is, okay, open mindedness is the first thing I always say. You know, when I started with toys, I had to learn the difference, and I'm still learning the difference between I know now what I like and what I don't like. I know that I prefer a dildo over a vibrator. You know, you have to like really get into what you like, what your dislikes and what your likes are. It took me a minute, but now, I mean, I like I said, I awakened a sleeping giant. Women, your body is so much, it's so I can't even describe what it is, but it's so much that you can have going on with your body. The one thing that we as women internal, we have to remember, a man can, ejaculate. They're gonna ejaculate. They can
And
think
she's
about
she's
everything
doing the
under the
movements
sun.
for us.
I did, and I had to look. I was doing it up here, then I said, "Oh, I need to do it down here." But they're going to do that no matter what in their head. But females, women, if we are thinking about something, we thinking about the markets, the kids, the grocery, what we got to do, the blah, blah, blah. Everything that we're thinking about it internalizes in our body. So we're not going to have an orgasm. We're not going to feel, we're just not, because the brain has taken over with everything that we have to do. So that's the one thing that is really, really hard for us as females to do, is to what they call relax.
Mhm.
And for females, we are not going to it's just not going to happen fast and quick. It's not. It takes, sometimes it could take days for us to have an orgasm, because we have to be in the right mindset, because our orgasm starts from up here and the man start from down here.
I've always told people, if you want to get intimate with me, you have to start here.
You
This is
have
where it
to
happens for me.
you have to
If you
go
don't
here for,
excite me
if
up here, forget
yes,
it.
if you don't have a woman's internal, it's not going to happen at all. Now, however, that is not true, because devices, because you have to, like I said, you have to know the female body, and I'm still learning, but the nerve, we have over 8,000 or something nerve endings in our clitoris, that the devices that they have, womanizers, it will make you have an orgasm, and I'll say in about 5 seconds.
This lady knows her toys.
I can, I, hands down, womanizers, instantly, that's what they invented them for. They invented them because we don't need to, like you said, because you have to get to here and all. We don't need all of that. I don't. Sometimes I just need to just vent, just to release and just to come. I don't need to be all of that, all of the extra. I just need to come. So nothing personal. I don't need all of that. The one. I just need just that. Because once you get to that point where I am, where you are, and you just, the nerve endings, you're just hitting those nerve endings, it's going to give you everything that you want. You don't have to go back and forth. We don't have to. It's just going to give you. It's going to give you the orgasm, as I call it, the peeing.
Lorna,
So,
on the topic of toys, at what point in your own journey were you introduced to toys? Did you use toys? Share that with you're muted, your microphone.
Thank you. Yes, actually, I did use them. I have, and that's actually how I first had my first orgasm at the age of 42. And I think that there are probably many women who are like me that go through years and years and years and not really being able to do that. So I was actually facilitating an energy wellness program, and it was a 5-day course. And my roommate was a woman from the United States who had her doctorate in human sexuality. And I was sharing with her how disconnected I was from my body. And she said, well, tell you what, why don't we do it this way? While we're in our class, or while we're here at the hotel, why don't we go naked in the room, just so that you can start to feel at home in your body? And
hold on, you went naked in a room with her?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there was no interaction. It was just,
no, I understand.
She was just, yeah. And so she just said, so I was just kind of like, so here, 2 hotel rooms, or two beds there sitting there. I sat there like a deer in headlight, and try to have a bit of conversation, don't look. And then little by little, it was interesting. I could start to turn my head and, make conversation.
Right.
And then pretty soon, up and around the room. As it turned out, over the course of an hour or two in the day, I just got comfortable, walking around the room, doing things, get out of the shower and talking as usual, to the point where on the 4th day of that class, I was ready to go teach the class, and I had my hand on the doorknob, and I said, oh, I have to put clothes on. So that was, that beautiful woman ended up being my masturbation coach. She introduced me to a vibrator. It's the first one I'd ever had, and to Betty Dodson's stainless steel barbell.
So Lorna, I just want to interject here with I had my. Yeah. Sorry, Lorna. I just want to interject here with a comment from the male section of our audience.
Yeah.
Gabriel says, well, I think it has to be between 2 people and not a vibrator. Who wants to take him on? Miss Devine, please take him on.
Okay. How far? All right.
Right. I was going to say, somebody better get him before I do.
Oh, sweet. All right. So,
be nice.
I'm trying.
Well, just go ahead and tell him. Just tell him there's no competition. No competition.
It is no competition. It really isn't. It is just adding to the tools. If you're an artist, you want all of the different paintbrushes that you can use to create an effect. If you're a musician, you want to add all of the different instruments to create an orchestra. It is not about a competition. It's about experimenting with different sensations. It's about finding different ways in which to stimulate not only your physical body, but your emotional body and your psychological body. And toys can be involved in that, right? Sometimes you want to, I always say to people, sex is never just physical. It's an embodied story. It's play. Yeah. It's bringing your internal psyche to life through experiments. And what do you do when you play? You find toys to play with. This is what we've done since we were children. You don't as a child, a non-sexual play, you know, a towel can become your Superman cape, and suddenly you take on the experience of being powerful, and you can imagine you can fly. And sexual toys not only stimulate you physically, but they help you get into a zone, into a mood. Wearing a cat suit can be a toy, to so that you can feel like you're experiencing a certain thing. Using a pair of handcuffs can be a toy, because suddenly you are restrained, and you can't. Being restrained is a very interesting toy, because you suddenly you can tell your mind that you're not responsible for somebody else's pleasure, because you can't do anything. So you're forced to just feel your own pleasure. And if you're a woman who's been brought up to constantly put other people's pleasure before your own, this is a toy, a little game that you can play in order to give your mind permission to focus on yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Toys.
thank you. That you were very kind. He's lucky I didn't answer him.
I was going to say, and we could not explain it any more professional than that.
Yeah, that was so PC. Lorna, you had something to add?
Yeah, you know, I think in some ways, you know, we're talking here about women and that aspect, and I can't help but, from my own experience, recognize as well that when we look at how women have our experience of women and around our sexuality, that on the flip side as well, that men have also been impacted, that pressure that men feel, that what I've come to experience is that men have a heart of service. They want to please, they want to provide, they want to protect. And when there's this pressure on them that they have to be a certain way, then there's a real pressure to do that, rather than, and I love what he has said in the sense that it takes two people. And that means it becomes this way of communication, instead of this pressure that I have to be something to you. It's kind of, how can we be this together? How can we develop a communication? How can we explore? How can we find out what's beyond what we have known, or what we have been taught is or should be or can't be, all of those things, and enter in this place where, let's, as Artemisia says, to play. What's there is possible, and in some ways to take the pressure off of men to be a certain way. And I think that from my own experience of working with my men in my sexology practice as well, is that there are many men who love vibrators, whether it's on their genitals, on their scrotum, on their perineum, on their anal, an anal penetration and a vibrator. There's something about that sensation. So we've been taught, no matter what gender we're at, that, oh, no, you don't do that. That's not natural. And yet it's whatever we choose to do consensually, let's play.
So Zen, Gabriel has decided he's going to be brave tonight. So I want you to answer him next. He says that's selfishness. Women don't have to be stingy with their body.
Well, first off, I think that we have to realize that patriarchy tells men many times, and even women, that women were put here for men. And that the only purpose, if you go back to the Bible, and this is where some people have to kind of take away some of these ideas. Adam was created first, and then Eve was created, and Eve was created to be his helpmeet. But actually, if you look at the Bible, there's two creations, because man and women created first together as equals, and then man and then women, right? So, my spiritual journey took me to basically throwing out this idea that I was put here to be a helpmeet for men, and that my body was supposed to be in service to men, and everything in my life was supposed to revolve around men. And I call that, and many people call that, decentering men. So basically, it is not selfish, meaning harmful or negative or bad, for a woman in her own home with her own money to buy a toy to pleasure herself. It is not selfish in terms of she doesn't owe her sexual pleasure to anyone else. Just like I can take a bath and I could fill it with bubbles, and that's not denying a man anything. Me having a vibrator is not denying a man anything. And once again, we have to get out of this idea that everything has to be about the other person. If you are truly my partner,
Am I back?
you truly want me to be my best self, then you should want me to experience things to make me my best self. And that could be me actually experimenting with certain things. And the whole idea that if you're not involved, then I shouldn't do it is selfish. Because it's basically saying that I should only do what benefits you. Now, how would a man feel if a woman said to him, you can't masturbate because that doesn't bring me any pleasure? Many men would feel like, what? That I've been masturbating ever since I was 7, 8 years old. How in the world did you tell me that? But men will feel perfectly fine in telling a woman it's selfish to use a vibrator. It's the same thing. It's your body, and you have the right to experience sexual pleasure, whether you're with a partner or without the partner.
Ladies, this. Yes, go ahead.
And if you don't feel that way, then I would kind of figure out why you don't feel that way. Why do you feel that you have the right to pleasure yourself, but she doesn't? Now, I do know that there are people who feel it's sinful to pleasure themselves. And I would also say, again, like I said, I try to get people to reclaim their sexuality and their whole mindset. Why would it be sinful? We were given 5 senses: touch, sight, smell, taste, hearing. Okay. We were given those senses, and we were given a body. So you mean to tell me that I'm not supposed to touch my body with the hands that God gave me? Why would that be? You know what I'm saying? So maybe there needs to be some questioning of why you even think this way. And do you think this way because somebody told you to think this way? And do you think that it was always that way? Because, one of my spiritual journeys was to go beyond and before the Bible and realize that people had beliefs that existed before the Bible. And those beliefs were that the human body was something to be celebrated. And you would see monuments. I mean, what is the Washington Monument? It's actually a phallus. The Washington Monument is a phallus. There were monuments to the vulva. There were monuments to the phallus. That was how important it was in ancient cultures. They made statues of it. And you see those statues where the women, you can see their labia, you can see their breasts, these were celebrated. We have babies because men and women get sexually aroused and they choose to come together. Without that, we would cease to exist as a people. Now, I don't know anything more important than the human race continuing. So to demonize the act that makes us have human beings is, to me,
craziness
in my life, crazy.
Yeah.
And the fact that we do that and we did that is something that people need to think about. Why do we do this?
So, Ms. Devine, would you please take this question? Some men feel less than a man when a woman uses a toy. He feels he's not man enough to pleasure a woman. It's a cultural thing, probably, especially among Black men. Maybe I should ask. Is it?
I do.
No, go ahead.
I can't speak to the Black culture, obviously, but I can add something that might be of interest, which is there is this human thing, regardless of your gender, where we really want to feel safe by having the other person be turned on by exactly who we are and exactly what we're turned on by, right? So we want to have if you want to share your secret sexual fantasy that you've never told someone, secretly we're hoping that our partner will also have exactly the same fantasy. Right. And that's what makes us feel safe. Oh, you're excited by that same sex act that I am. Oh, now I'm safe to let my vulnerability out and express this with you. So there's some part of us that is trying to feel safe by controlling the other person's desire, but that's never going to work. It's never, because each one of us has their own unique path to getting turned on, their own unique path to feeling safe enough to be vulnerable, to let go and be primal, right? So your own set of turn-ons, basically what your turn-ons are, and your sexual fantasies they are the exact story we need to hear in order to overcome our own fear of being vulnerable, so we can let go and feel pleasure. Right? So when you understand that, you can really create the same effect in your real life sex, but it's no longer focused on trying to force somebody else to have the same turn-ons as you. Now you can take turns going, oh, that's yours. I'd love to make this special experience for you and support you to explore your particular unique way of getting there. Now it's my turn. Do you want to try mine? And that's going to be the restaurant.
So we've crossed the first hour, and normally I'll be looking to wind up, but there's no way I'm winding up right now. Because we haven't even touched the framework that I sent you ladies about creativity, sexuality. Does our sex life hold back our creative life, or can it be a propellant for creative life? So I want to get into that now, but I want to get there through Lyque you, because maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it.
Say it. Say it.
You're a breast cancer survivor, right?
Yes.
And I've always wondered, and eventually I would ask my sister. One of our directors, Gloria, was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, and she went through the process and so forth. So I would eventually ask her, because we have that kind of conversation. But since I have you here, how does breast cancer? We're just talking about breast cancer, okay? How does that? Because it's so central to who we are as women. It's part of, who we are as women sexually in the sexual life. How does that play into your sex life? Did it affect you at first? Did it? How? What was your experience? Being diagnosed, and then, I know you're married. How did that?
I'm sorry, I got emotional.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I cross the line?
No, you did not. But it's a touching subject, and
you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
No, I want to answer it because it's all educational to people. It's educational to know what I feel and how does that affect. How does it affect? It affects the whole thing. As you can say, it's a game changer. I don't have any feeling. I don't have breasts anymore. I have breasts because I chose to use my belly fat to make new breasts. So that was one of the options that you choose, whether or not you want to even have breasts or not after the cancer, because they have to remove the cancer, and then you decide what you want to do after they remove the cancer. So in making that decision, and because I was married, that I did have to consider my husband in making those decisions. I didn't even realize, and that's why I said you have to consider their feelings too, because when I was making a decision, he happened to say, I want nipples. And I just turned around and looked. It was like, you want nipples? And he's like, yeah. So that meant that he was really paying attention to what was going on. Right. He was paying attention to what was going on. And he had made it, said that, in viewing what he wants to view, that he wanted to see nipples. I was just, I didn't care. I didn't want nipples because they were talking about the nipples. If you got nipples, that they say what you call the headlights are always on. Your nipples are always like hard, as they say. So, but they're not as as they say they were, as they said it was going to be. So it's not that much of a difference. But that was touching because I remember that conversation when we had, we was talking about that. And then it took me, I had breast cancer in 2021. So it took me from 2021 to just last year, the end of last year, to even be physical, to go back into the bedroom and be physical with my husband. So that there was like a whole nother journey because, it's like I have rules now. You can't touch me here. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can do that, so we had to like learn what to do when we go back into the bedroom, so I play a lot, when I say adult novelties and everything, but when the reality, when you look back and when the guy said, it's not fair for two people, we made a decision in my marriage that it was fair. It was okay for me to participate with the toys without him, because of my situation, so there are times where you do make the decision and you make a decision that's based on you and how you feel and how your partner, based on your relationship,
I
so.
am so honored that you answered my question. I did not mean to cause you any.
No.
It was just something I have always been curious about, and so
we need to
please,
talk more about it,
okay.
So
I am grateful. I am grateful that you answered, and it ties into how does life affect our creativity or sexuality. And I know that I love calling you Miss Divine. Has to go shortly. Remember, she's in Australia. So, any final words from you, Artemisia?
Artemisia, yes.
Artemisia. I'm going to stick with Miss Divine.
You did well. I really appreciated you saying that. Well, I'm going to stumble around the name. Is it Lyque? Is it
like you? I like you, like you.
Like you.
Yes.
I really appreciated you saying that and sharing that. I come from a family of there's not a woman who has not had breast cancer in my family except for me so far, and I'm 49 now. So pretty much it's I might be the one that won the lottery and doesn't get it, but I'm pretty much thinking I probably will at some point. So I really appreciate that conversation and that honesty and that rawness. That is a super important topic. And I loved what you had to say, Lorna and Zen. You were both amazing and vibrant. And one day I'd love to have juicier conversations to go really deep into that. And Claudette, you've done such a wonderful job of hosting us all and creating this conversation. So I'm just going to I'm going to go now, but I really appreciated being part of it all.
This has been
Thank
great.
you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for saying thanks. Look forward to having you with us again. And thank you. Have a good night. Is it night or morning?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lorna,
yes.
to the main reason why we're here about because as I said, this year at the Daughters of Sheba Foundation, we're focused on creativity, in being innovative, being our most innovative self and our most resilient self. But one of the things that I know, even for me personally, that has held me back over the years at different points in life is my sexual relationship. If it's not working, like Zen had described in her various her two marriages, it affects my writing. It affects, because I love to write. It affects my creative side. On the other hand, when I'm heartbroken, that's when I write better, and stuff like that. So, what's your take on that?
Zen mentioned it as well, and I agree with that aspect of sex is what is the ultimate creation, right? Is we're created through sex itself. So it, in its very nature, is creative. So when we are accessing that sexual energy, we are literally tapping into the creative life force of life itself. There's a quote of Audre Lorde's that's been central to my own being and my teaching and my sexology work. Is she says, we tend to think of the erotic as a quick, tantalizing sexual arousal. I speak of the erotic as that deepest life force energy that moves us in a fundamental way. And so to be able to tap into that life force energy, that creative life force, it's creativity in its very essence. And so for me, it's and that journey that I've experienced, and I teach the people that I work with, whether they're men or women, is to bring that energy back into themselves. It's tapping into that. There's one of the programs that I take people through is, I call it PEP, personal erotic practice. And it's not just about genitals, it's about that whole essence, the whole body, the whole energy field of who we are. And there's this one woman who's in Edmonton, and she contacted me. And I'm just over here in BC, so just a few hours from you, Claudette.
Yeah, I was in BC for Christmas, and I'm
were you?
coming
Oh, that's
back.
great.
Wow.
That's great. She contacted me, and she's a woman of 32 years old and in a relationship, and she wanted to reconnect with her sexuality. As it turned out, and so I took her through her PEP program. We were in a 6-week program together. And she was, as she reflected afterwards, she said, I thought it was going to impact the way I influenced, or pardon me, the way I interacted in my sex life with my partner. She said, what I found was I found out what I like and what I don't like. And my creativity, she was a writer as well, Claudette, and she was a writer, and she said, my writing has become prolific. I'm getting responses for it. I'm getting awards for it. And that was through tapping into that creativity that was there. And so there's that power when we are really coming back into and feeling the aliveness within. We are literally tapping into that creative force. And I talk about orgasm. Sometimes we think about that's where sex is about, this ultimate destination, whether we're by ourselves or with a partner. Was it a successful time? Did you have an orgasm? And, I also learned that, wow, I am multiple orgasmically capable. But I often say that orgasm can actually show us where our pleasure cap is. And so as we can, even when by hand or with a partner or with a beautiful toy, to be able to find out when it feels like there's an orgasm coming, can we actually spread that energy and let our whole bodies become alive, and rather than it being focused on the genitals, and breathe and expand that energy. So instead of this trajectory going up, 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 build to this climax, which is what we're used to with a male trajectory, is to ride the waves. So as it's building, 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 to let it come down. And use our breath instead of trying to, okay, go for it. It's just kind of, can I breathe and relax? Because the more we breathe, the more we relax, and the more we relax, the more we feel. And so let it then go up again and ride those waves. And each time it expands what's possible, and it expands our whole ability to feel the realm and the wealth of all of the feelings and the emotions and experiences that we have. And so those beautiful toys that can be touched upon, and one of my favorite powerful using the toys was actually a clitoral and an anal orgasm at the same time. Was profound. It was like having think about notes of a scale or an orchestra. The anal orgasm at the same time was like the deepest bass note, and the clitoral orgasm at the same time was like this high note, and it was just like this orchestra that just exploded within my body. And so to be able to allow that with the gift of those toys in our hands, it's just, there's so many waves to ride. Instead of going on here and just saying it's done, it's kind of like, no, ride the waves, and find what's possible with this beautiful play that's available.
Like you is totally enjoying what you just said.
Okay, and now I'm on a different camera, so I'm on a different, because my computer wouldn't work anymore. So I'm on a phone. So if I'm giving y'all emotional face, I, I can't see it, but I'm like, oh yes. Oh, yes.
Zen,
I'm feeling it.
as an author, a poetress, that side of you, how has your creativity been affected or impacted in a negative way by your sexual experiences?
Well, my thought for myself, and this is what I also ask people to consider, is authenticity. To me, the alignment that you have within yourself. Do you really believe, is your heart and your mind and your body all aligned on the same thing? And if you are repressing your sexuality, if you are repressing your pleasure, if you're not giving yourself permission to explore the depths and the fullness of your desires, then to me, your creativity is capped as well. And your vision is capped as well. You're not able to be your fully authentic self. And to me, your voice as a writer, as a performer, as an entrepreneur, that voice that you have that's uniquely you isn't just here in your vocal cords, it's throughout your whole body. You can speak through every part of your body, your hands, your lips, your other lips, you can literally speak. And what I found, in my book, I wrote about actually, in a sense, almost leaving my body during sex, like actually having such intense connection with the person that I was with, to where I would literally have visions. I would literally see things. And then afterwards, in ancient times, there was the idea that you had priests and priestesses, and they would come together in the sex act because it would actually spread blessings out over the community. And it was actually called the sacred marriage, Hieros Gamos. And that whole idea of this combustible energy would come up out of them and spread. So what I found in my own life is that for days and sometimes even weeks after having an intense orgasm where I was completely mentally, emotionally, and physically connected with that person, where our energy was melding, I would be so creative. I would be getting so many ideas. I would feel unstoppable. Like, okay, like everything I touch is golden. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter who I meet. It doesn't matter what I try. It's going to work. I would feel almost this goddess energy, like I am literally the goddess incarnate, and I can do no wrong. And so in that state, a lot of people will ask me, so I got divorced 10 years ago. And in that period of time, all right, I wrote 5 books, 4 of them bestsellers. I created a podcast that was top 10% globally. I would feel almost. Yeah. So all of these different things happened. I became a congressionally awarded activist. I've created a business where we do poetry, comedy.
All of that is from sex. Good sex.
I will say that sex was a part of me saying, let all of what's in me come out.
Wow.
And when I stopped repressing my desires, then I started saying, what am I capable of? What could I accomplish? What's in me? What are my desires? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? I started giving voice to those things without fear. And because I had spent my whole life afraid of not being a good girl, afraid of having a high body count, afraid of what people are going to think, afraid of going to hell, I was afraid of everything. But what I didn't realize is that having all those fears was literally keeping me in this very limited box. And inside that box, I was miserable. Inside that box, I felt like my life was a rut. There's a story. One of my favorite short stories is by Kate Chopin. It's called The Story of an Hour. And basically in this story, the woman, she's got a heart condition, and her brother, it was like her friend and her husband's best friend or something, come over to tell her that her husband's been killed in a train accident. Everybody on the train died. And she goes into the room by herself, and they're so scared. They're thinking, should we check on her? Is her heart okay? Is she going to have a heart attack from this shock? And she's sitting there going, I'm free. I'm free. Because in that time period, her husband made every decision for her. This was like 1901, 1903. She couldn't sign a contract. She couldn't go to school. She couldn't work. She couldn't do anything. And she's like, I'm free. I'm a widow. I'm free. I can actually make decisions for myself. And she comes out and she's so excited. And she's thinking about her life, because the day before she actually hoped that her life would be short. But now that her husband is passed on, she's thinking about this. I hope my life will be long. And then the door opens and her husband walks through the door, and he was not on the train, and she has a heart attack and died.
No.
And the last line of the story is, and the doctors came and said she died from the joy that kills. But it's an ironic ending, because it was actually disappointment that killed her. And it's one of my favorite stories because she did everything she was supposed to do.
Can you name the story again, please?
The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin.
The what?
The Story of an Hour. So all of this happens in an hour. In an hour, she has this vision of a totally new life. She has a vision of all of these possibilities. She has a vision of becoming this new self. And then she walks out, and the hour's up, and her husband's walking through the door, and everything she just dreamed is just that vanished. So when I think about stories like that, I say to myself, I don't live in 1901 or 1903, whenever it was. I actually have the opportunity to step outside that box that she was put in and be my authentic self, and to, fulfill my dreams. My ancestors couldn't do it. She couldn't do it, but I can. And so sexuality was a part of me claiming that, this freedom, this choice, this opportunity, and saying, I want to go for everything that I could have, and so to me, reclaiming my sexuality was a part of that. And then the creativity came with it, because all of a sudden I'm taking risks, that I wouldn't have taken before, because I'm staying in the safe box before. The box of the good girl, the box of the one who doesn't think too much. You can't think too much. You can't want too much. You can't need too much. You got to keep everything down. So when you start saying, no, I can want, I can desire, I can feel, I can be, it opens up for me a whole new world of opportunities. So that's why
that was very powerful, what you just said. Thank you for sharing that.
Well,
like you, as we wrap up tonight, what are your final thoughts, on your own journey, beyond the breast cancer, beyond the toys, your journey, if you don't mind my asking, you did say you're 57. What is that?
Yes, I'm 57. Yeah.
Yeah. In your 57 years, how has life changed for you in terms of expressing yourself as a woman?
Wow. You keep getting these deep, you're giving me deep emotions.
I'm sorry.
The reason why I said that is because I haven't had an easy life. But it's life. I have a story. And my story keeps changing, and it keeps getting more and more interesting. So to start off, I was 17 years old when I had my first child. 17. I was a child myself. My mother and my father, my family were alcoholics. So there was no guidance on, there was only, as I say, they were concerned with the men as opposed to boys. So I guess that's how I got, that's how I got pregnant, because my mother was focused on thinking that a man, back in those days, it was rape and there was a lot of incest and everything going on in the families. So my mother was protecting me from the men in the family, but she wasn't protecting me from going out in the street and with the boys and having sex at a young age, and not protecting myself and being naive. When I had sex, I played Russian roulette. So when I rolled those dice and I got caught, there was no, my first time, not to TMI, to tell people, my first time I got pregnant, I was 16 and I had an abortion. My brother took me straight to the place to get me an abortion because he was embarrassed that I got pregnant at 16. But what I did, it was naive. What I did was I just went right back out there and did the same thing, got pregnant again, thinking, oh, he's going to take me back to the clinic and get me another abortion. No, it was like, I don't have no more. I'm not going to do that again. So it's like, oh, so life hit me quick. I was pregnant. I was 17 years old. And the one thing that I say, though, and this has nothing to do with the sex, but it has to do with family and oriented, is it took a village with me. So that village helped me to not be a bad person, a person out in the street. It taught me and it gave me positivity. So all my life, my son was 17, at 17 years old. When I was 18 years old, I got my first job, and I worked from day one. I worked hard. I was a strong female. I watched my parents grow up and everything, and saying that I didn't want to be like them. I wasn't going to be there. I wasn't going to just be in poverty and do what, just do that. I wanted more out of life. I wanted more for this little boy that I had on this earth, so that was it. I didn't realize sexuality and everything until I was just out there just doing whatever I was big and bad enough to do and surviving. I had 3 marriages out. I was married 3 times. My first husband, he had 3 kids and outside of our marriage. The second husband, he had sex with so many women until I called him a sex addict because he just couldn't stop having sex with people. So I had that mentality that men were just not good. And then my third husband came into my life and he was like, you need to stop putting that wall up because men are not the same. And I'm thinking men are the same. My mother taught me that men are the same. Everything is going to be the same, but then it's not. So then I got into a relationship 20 something years ago with a Caucasian, and my life turned totally upside down, was indifferent. My family and everything changed.
No, you're making me cry.
But my husband is wonderful. We've known each other all of our lives, not all of our life, but we've known each other for 30 something years, with me working in my career that I worked in, and we've been together, and we just been through everything. Like I said, I'm the only one left in my family because of all of the deaths that we had. So I've had a up and down, as you call it, life, but I did not, and I will not, and I have not let that affect me or get to me, because things happen and everything happens for a reason. And I was taught the story that I always like, as a lady told me, that a flower, you pull the roots of it. The roots has been torn upon, but you can take that flower and replant it into another flower pot, and it's going to regrow. And that's what we have to do. We have to continue to be positive and do whatever it takes and do what we need to do what we need to do to survive. Life is not easy. Things are going to happen. We're going to have our ups and downs and our peaks and our valleys, but we just got to keep getting up and keep doing what we need to do to survive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Same question to you, Lorna. Your journey, what has it been that, you spoke about your midlife sexual awakening, but we don't know much about what happened before that, and what led to you saying, enough of this nonsense. I'm going to take off my clothes in this room with this woman.
Yes, I can't wait to hear more about that.
Well, such a great questions we've had tonight. Beautiful discussion. For me, as I mentioned, growing up in a religious home, married, and I was married at the age of 18 and had my 2 daughters by the time I was 21. In that time, a beautiful husband that, really tried to please me. And I just, here was this trajectory that worked for, that we
Mhm.
understood, but didn't work for me. And I always thought, okay, I guess it just doesn't work for me. I've lost it. He did some research and found out, he said, it looks like you, like the majority of women, are non-orgasmic. He was sincere in that. And he said, can you be content with what you do have? And I kind of, okay, what do I do? 5 years into the marriage, he had said, why don't you find out what makes you feel good so you can tell me? And I say the wisdom of those words, and yet it took me 20 years to start that exploration. And that's when I, my first orgasm, and through my masturbation coach, which I'm privileged, because that's what I get to do, is a coach for women and men in their own masturbation. And I use personal erotic practice because for me, the word masturbation actually comes from shame. So I say personal erotic practice because it taps into that life force energy. And so for me, it became this journey of, 20 years later, started to do that exploration when my girls were out of the home. It was kind of, okay, who am I? And that's where I started to take some courses and some trainings. And because for me, I thought, I feel lost within my body. It feels like this relationship is, I found that in my husband at the time he was from the same religious background. And we both had that context of, as has been shared here today, this idea that the woman is for the man. And I remember my daughter, or my niece, at her wedding, my sister reading out something from the 1950s, 60s home ec guide, that a woman shall, be there before the husband gets home. Make sure you change your clothes, do your hair, make sure the dinner is in there so he, it smells nice. Don't bring up your concerns. Listen to the day. And I remember people just laughing. And I was sitting there, just tears running down my face, because I thought, that's how I'd been living. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And so when I look back from this vantage point that I have right now, I see that my turning point of that midlife sexual awakening, the years prior to that, was that reinforcing of those old stories of woman for the man. And it's not that my husband at the time said, oh, that's what I'm going to do, because he said, I had no intention it was just, we were both operating from that paradigm. And so those years were just that reinforcing of how deeply that goes as woman, as wife, and my role to be responsible for the man. It's my job to make sure that the husband looks good to the community, and regardless of what it's doing to me, how much I am putting down my own needs. And so that midlife sexual awakening became my turning point. And it actually came to the point where, when I became a somatic sexologist, and I was working hands-on with people to support them in their reawakening to their sexuality and being able to feel at home and alive in their bodies and their sexuality, my husband said, he said, I get that this is what you're doing. And he said, that just doesn't work for me. So he said, I give you the opportunity to choose. Is that where you want to go, or do you want to stay in the marriage? And as I felt into it, and this is the basis of the work that I do, is feeling what's happening in the body. As I felt into each one, I could feel that aliveness of what I had been experiencing, my own aliveness as a sexual erotic being, this incredible gift that I had of supporting people in reconnecting to their bodies and their sexuality. And as I felt into the relationship, staying in the marriage, it just felt I could wither. And it wasn't because it was bad, but the vision that came was that of a tree that was growing in a pot that had become root bound. To stay in it would be death. But it had so beautifully served its purpose of helping me to be vibrant and to now be ready to be planted into a different way of being. And so now, as I look at from that point on, I look back at everything that has played its purpose and its role in reinforcing that. And everything now has been a reawakening to the truth of who I am as a sexual erotic being, as a woman, as a spiritual being. And so I use the analogy as a story unweaver. I look back at, when you look at a movie or a story in a book, that everything along the way is perfectly in place to support that character's develop and that character's journey. And I think probably just as a quick referral to the story of Hansel and Gretel. When Hansel and Gretel leave their home, there's two different versions. One is they drop the breadcrumbs along the way, and when they try to go home, there's the birds have eaten them and they can't find their way back home. But the other one is that of the pebbles. He drops the pebbles along the way, and when it comes time, they just follow the pebbles back home. So when I look at all of the traumas, all of the stories where men have done things to me, where I didn't feel like I had a voice, where my consent was overridden, where it was this sense of boundaries, I didn't know I had a right to them. I didn't know how to right to my voice. I look at all of those things that have perfectly played a role in taking me away from the truth of who I am as a woman, as a sensual, erotic being, and as a spiritual being. And I get to go back, and every time there's a pebble, a wound, a story element, it's like the gold is there. And that's the journey I get to do is, okay, people, let's go, let's find the gold. There's that emotion that's there. There's that feeling of, I don't have a voice. Let's feel into it. Let's harvest the gold that's there and take you back home to who you are. So for me, that's been my journey, in this incredible journey of, as I do the inner work, as I feel into what's there, it's the world around me changes. And so to be able to, I like to think about almost starting another Me Too movement. And it's for those who are saying, I'm ready to say that everything has perfectly, no matter how it felt, because I've, had this sense of being raped and all of these various things, the various traumas that we have, the voices, I don't have a voice, I don't have boundaries, I don't have consent. What's that? To be able to go back into and to allow every piece of it to be embraced and appreciated for the role it is being played in hiding the truth of who we are. And now it's just the journey to come back home to who we are and live in their fullness.
You ladies are amazing. And so we're going to close with you, Zen, sharing with us your journey. But we know you were married twice. We know you went on 157 dates. We know that. So I want to know, now that you're here, where are you going in your mind?
Well, I am an explorer. And I believe that, like I said about stepping out of the box and letting my intuition lead me to wherever it wants to take me, that's where my journey is right now. Coming up, I do workshops. I do writing workshops, breath work, meditation. So I have one coming up in March. It's a Zoom workshop. It's called Poetry is Alchemy.
Nice.
So you can actually come on to the workshop and learn how to basically take your pain and transform it into power through writing and through different self-exploration activities. So I do workshops. I know I'm going to write more books. Nice. I know I'm going to do more performances. I actually have one tomorrow on Valentine's Day. And so I really am going to explore myself. I have no idea where my journey is going to lead me, but I trust in the process. I trust in the process because, like she was talking about the Hansel and Gretel story. When I look back over my life, and I've written 2 memoirs now, looking at my life as the hero's journey, if you've ever heard of that, I can see that arc story, and I use that to tell my story a lot. Looking back at it through the eyes of the female archetypes, there is at least 11 that I'm really familiar with. I can see how I move through each one of those, like the mother, the wise woman, the huntress, there's all of these different archetypes. So I see all of this in my life now in hindsight. When I was going through it, a lot of it was like, what's going on? Why is this happening? I don't understand. But now looking back, it's a beautiful journey, painful. I lost a lot of people, just like, like you. And my grief was a transformative force for me. It was kind of out of the crucible. When you come out of the crucible, you come out refined. I see myself as a phoenix many times, like everything burned to the ashes, and then the phoenix rises up and it's a different bird, So I believe that I went through a lot of this stuff because I'm able to share how to overcome, how to transform, how to alchemize. I love the word alchemy. Basically, we turn lead to gold. So I believe that I was able to do that because of all of the things that were given to me. I was introduced to journaling early. I was introduced to a lot of books early. I was introduced to spirituality in different ways, meditation, breath work, in my later years. So I've been given a lot of tools, and now I'm able to share with people how to take all those tools and recreate themselves. I feel like I've had about 5 different lives. Very traditional, very conservative, very religious, very bound. Then this totally different person over here that's completely spiritual and has no ties to religion in that sense. I know everything that I've always known, but I'm not bound by it.
You're not bound.
So, and then here, this person who has no expression of sexuality in her fullness, to this person who has experienced a lot of things and taken a lot of risks. So, I feel like I've recreated myself many times, and still I probably am not as far out there as some people, so I think I'm a bridge for a lot of people because they can see me as, oh, she's very much like me because of her religious background, because of her marriages, because of her traditional conservative, belief system. And you can see how I moved to something different. And so I think that helps a lot of people relate to me, is that I didn't start off this radical, militant, out there person. I started off probably the most sheltered, naive person on the planet. And here we move through this journey. So I just feel like I don't know what's happening in terms of where I'm going to go, but I trust the journey. And I also believe that that's a great thing for people to learn, is to be in the moment, to embrace the moment, and trust in what's in you, trust in the journey, trust in the purpose that you were given, and just let that unfold, because I always say this: if I knew what was coming, if I knew all the things that would happen to me, I would have probably been too scared to do it.
Somebody actually
unfolded in its proper time. I was able to take one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time.
I don't want to reopen the conversation because we need to wrap up, but someone asked earlier, Sarah Brown, if you knew then what you know now, would your relationship be different?
Well, can I respond to that real quick?
Yes, please.
In my book, I talk about how I wish sometimes that I had been able to step outside of my comfort zone to try a lot of things in my relationships. But also, I think you have to have a supportive partner. And I think that both my husbands were very close-minded and very steeped in patriarchy. They both were in their own way very authoritarian. And so it was kind of like my way or the highway when it came to them. So even if I knew what I know now, I don't think it would have impacted them. I don't think that I would have been able to move them in any kind of way, because they weren't willing to take risks. They weren't willing to change. They weren't willing to explore. And I think that that's another thing that you have to realize as a woman. If you're going to be on this journey of expression, you're going to need to have a partner that accepts that. Because if a man thinks that you're just here for him and you can't have your own voice and your own say and your own pleasure, you're going to have a hard time expressing all these things that we're expressing, because every time you express it, he's going to shut it down. And so I think that we can do all these things as women, but we can also realize that there are some men that are not ready for this and they don't want it.
No, they're not. They're not.
They don't want it. And we kind of saw that even in this show, like, you're being selfish using toys.
I that's where my mind went, when you said that to what happened tonight, but God bless them, that's their way, and we as women, as you, four of you tonight, Miss Divine had to go, showed us that we can be who we want to be. you know, and it harms no one as long as you're not harming yourself. So I really, really appreciate you all for being here tonight. We have to do this again.
Yes.
Where in BC are you? Just general area, Vancouver?
I'm close to Kelowna. Yeah, so in the Okanagan. Yeah.
Okay, because I spent Christmas on the Sunshine Coast.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
We had a beautiful 3 weeks there. But we have to do this again, you know.
Love that.
Like again, I so thank you, like you. I so thank you for allowing me to ask one of the questions I've always wanted to understand. You know, and it's actually it was Mr. Vine who spoke about fear, and one of my fears, not for myself but for my dear friend, has been, you know, what will life be for her after breast cancer, you know. And so listening to you tonight, everything that you have said, it really calmed my spirit for her. You know, our dear friend.
I'm glad.
Yes.
Always, you can pass my information on. I have a Facebook page. I have a cancer page, Facebook page, and I also have a BK page also. Nice. But please, anytime, especially with survivors or someone that's going through it, I'm always there, and always, you know, inbox me anytime for any questions or. You know,
I will.
And we're not far, Laura. We're 30 minutes away.
Oh, really?
I'm in Baltimore.
Oh, you're in Baltimore. Oh, you're 30 minutes away from Lorna, eh?
Like 30. Yeah.
Oh, it's exciting.
See? Beautiful. And where in the States are you, Zen? Just generally.
I'm in Texas. I'm
in Texas.
Close to Houston. I'm right outside of Houston.
Did you go to the Super Bowl?
No. No. Man, those tickets, I've heard those tickets were so expensive. So
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But ladies, thank you so much for gracing and blessing us with your presence, your wisdom, your knowledge. We have to do it again. Each of you on your own, that there is a conversation right in there. And it's a conversation I want to have with each of you. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette.
Yeah. Have a good night, and everybody who were able to watch us live, those who will be watching. We have a lot of people who watch our recordings, and I also take snippets from each person and replay them. So I will be doing that. Thank you again, ladies.
Okay.
Have a good night.
All right.
And God bless you. Or source, the creator, the divine,
right?
Whatever name you use, whatever name you use. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, good night, everybody. Bye-bye.